right, friends, here we are in the Claude Content Infinity folder, which is in Google Drive. As I have said, you do not need to use Google Drive. You could use any other second brain software. I use Obsidian, but I find that most people are most familiar with Google Drive, and it's a really straightforward way to do it. If you want to get crazy later, you can always move everything over. It's not difficult to do, but this is how I organize mine. So for the purposes of using, Google Drive, this is what we're talking about here. As you can see, I have a whole bunch of folders inside of a main folder called Claude Content Infinity. You can call yours Content Brain or Gerald, whatever you want. And then that's all inside my marketing folder, which has got, however you organize your stuff. You may not even organize it in here, but have a main folder. And then you've got all these subfolders. I've got blog posts that has all of the blog posts that I've written in one spot. That was difficult to find, and I'm not done. I've got books that I've written 6 books, and also things that are kind of like books I sometimes put in there too. Really long guides, or my 120 ways to use Claude Co-work is in the books section. It doesn't really matter how you do it. Content planning. Sometimes I just find these weird old documents where I just wrote 4 pages of some topic for no real reason, and it's weird and just random, and I'm like, okay, let's just throw that in there. Documents and resources, the PDFs or freebies or random stuff. I'll come back to inspiration. All my old Facebook posts are in there, so I downloaded them all from Facebook. It's pretty easy. It gives you a JSON file of all your posts, and then you put it in here, and it becomes 10 years of content that Claude can go through. I've got photos in here. I'm still working through how to use them best, but I do have that folder in here. Presentations or slide decks or different stuff like that. Even like maybe, the calendar is in the calendar, but actually, that's not helpful. Social media stuff, other things that fall outside of that. Maybe you got a few Blue Sky posts that you're not planning on using Blue Sky, so you just chuck them in here or something. Substack posts, often those are the same as blog posts, but if they're not, you can set up a zap so that every time you post a Substack, it zaps itself into Google Drive, or you can just tell Claude to do it. That's easy. Testimonials that people have given me over the last 6 years. Transcripts of videos, transcripts of talks, other transcripts, miscellaneous. And then the last one's videos. I mostly just put them in there for the purposes of one day, hopefully being able to chop them up, but they're just in here for decoration right now. And then lastly, the Content Infinity. This is an MD file. That is the file that instructs Claude what to do with all of this content, how to use it, what your brand voice is, the type of thing that you want, maybe the themes that you usually talk about. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. I do have a template for it in this module. Don't fill it out by hand unless you fancy wasting time. Just get Claude to do it or to prompt you, because there's a lot of stuff in here and you may not have thought of a lot of it. And we keep it here in this folder, and we tell Claude, as part of the skill that we use for Content Infinity, we tell Claude, before you do any content, read this file. And so it has a memory once it reads the file, and it can do the same stuff every time. When we're creating skills, that's one of the skills that is the skill that you get in this module of the course or of school. In my membership, you get the skill that uses all this stuff. So right now we're just talking about the actual drive, the content brain, and that is what Claude will read every time. So it does need to be decent. I've given you a template in another module here. And the last thing I wanted to talk about in here is the inspiration. So it's not my content, and it talks about this in the Content Infinity MD file. If the folder is called inspiration, don't use exact phrases. So I like to use my exact-ish phrases so that things don't sound like AI. And so it can go through all my stuff and pull my exact phrases. I like to use the 80-20 and the 20-80 rule. So basically, if it's my content, I want to use 80% of my own content and only only add like, 20% to it. Mostly use my content. And then when it comes to the inspiration folder, I want to use 20% of what's in, of the words specifically in concepts that are in that folder. And 80% I want you to use my stuff, like apply my rules, my way of thinking to those concepts. I've got all kinds of things in that inspiration folder, from like just books that I agree with, that I wish that I'd written or really, really like. I've got Glennon Doyle's Untamed, but obviously I don't want to use any of her stories in my content. I mean, I want to reference them, but I don't want to say that they're mine. That would be crazy. So I just can say, in Glennon's book, blah, blah, here's how that applies to me. I've got Bell Hooks stuff in there. I've got Jen Sincero. I've got The Science of Getting Rich. I've got Think and Grow Rich. I've got loads of stuff in there. And it's all stuff that I love and agree with, and it's like aligned with my brand. And so it's my inspiration. It's my inspiration folder. I can reference it, but I don't want to use any of it as my content. It's important. I'm not copying anyone's stuff. But I really like to reference other people's material and credit them for it, so that's what's in that folder. And that way it's helpful if you don't have tons of content, but you do have some concepts that you want to talk about. You can talk about them that way. Just like you would in your own brain, by the way, when you're writing a blog post and you're like, I really like that concept from that book. I'm going to reference it. It's exactly the same thing. So, okay, that is how the content brain works inside of Google Drive. Once that's set up, then you can, and hopefully you will have the other part set up as well, the scheduling to your social platforms. Once those two things are done, then Claude has exactly what it needs to create a really awesome content brain system for your content infinity. And if you've got questions about that, please post them here in the group, in the community. And if you need more help, you want me to help you set up at least the techie part of it. If you want to figure out some other integration that you could use with it, etc., just let me know. I do a $99 Pick My Brain session, which you can do anytime you need extra help. Otherwise, just ask in the group, totally free, and happy to jump in and help you with what you need as well. See you in the next video.